So today we will begin talking about the battles of the Revolutionary War. We've already started talking about how it really started and some of the key people, but now it's important for you to understand the key events that shaped the Revolutionary War. There were several major battles throughout the Revolutionary War and several smaller battles as well. They took place all along the 13 colonies, primarily in the New York, Pennsylvania area, and Massachusetts, that area. Few of them took place in the South as well, and we are not going to talk about all of these battles, but just the most important ones. So, the first one we've already discussed, the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Again, just a little refresher. It happened on April 19th, 1775. This was when the British troops rode to Boston. Their plan was to steal supplies from the militia and unarm the colonists, make sure that they could never fight back because they have sent off the Declaration of Independence. That was an act of war, and Britain knew that something was coming, that maybe these guys were starting to prepare themselves for something big. And Britain wanted to go and take away their guns and their artillery. Then we had the shot heard round the world. This was when somebody fired a gun. We don't know who, but somebody fired, and it began the Battle of Lexington and Concord. The British set fire to the town, and they were a little surprised that the militiamen and the colonists started fighting back, that they didn't just back down from a fight, and it is considered the first official battle of the Revolutionary War. Next is the Battle of Ticonderoga. This happened on May 10th, 1775. It was a British fort and had been a British fort since about the French and Indian War. So, several years, more than 20 years, this had been a fort that belonged to the British, long before the Revolutionary War was even thought of. And it kind of fallen apart, but it was their storehouse. It was where they kept all their ammunition and storage. So Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys, that's what they called themselves, it was a group of colonists, rode across Lake Champlain from what we call Vermont now, and they captured the fort. It was quick. It was a late night surprise attack. The British did not see them coming. The British were not really prepared for it because really we're only a month or less into the war. They didn't expect the colonists to be this open about their attack. So they come in, they take over this fort pretty quickly, and it's considered the first offensive victory for the American forces because it did a couple of things. The first is it secured a strategic pathway north. So now they could, this area had kind of blocked them off from Canada and other parts of the northern colonies. Now they had access to these colonies fairly quickly, and they didn't have to go through the British to get there. But even more importantly, remember this fort is full of British artillery and ammunition, and now the Americans have access to it. They took over basically the weapons storehouse for Britain. And that scared the living daylights out of the British. And it scared them enough that they decided to evacuate Boston by March of 1776. They were like, no, they have all of our weapons. We've got to get out of here. So then we have the Battle of Bunker Hill. This happened in June of 1775. The British wanted to keep control of Boston. This is prior to their evacuation because of Fort Ticonderoga, but they wanted to keep control of Boston. It was a pretty big port city, and it was very important to both sides. So the colonists were trying to take it over while the British had it. And the British had this plan that they could take control of two hills in the area. They were the two highest hills, and that would give them a tactical advantage. If you ever have played in, a snow fight or any kind of thing like that, the person up at the highest peak, the tallest mountain, has the easier advantage because they can throw down, they can aim, and they're resting. The person coming uphill has to work harder to get up the hill and work harder to throw or move an object uphill. Plus, they can't see as well. The person up at the top can see everyone. The person down at the bottom can only see a limited viewpoint. So the British said they're going to take over Bunker Hill and Breed Hill because those are the two highest points. However, The Americans heard about this before the British could take over those hills. They went overnight and started building up fortifications at the top of the hill. They like took over the hills in the middle of the night when the British didn't even know what was happening. So when the British realized what was happening, they attacked. And they led 3 charges up the hill. And you'll notice, this is always very weird, but this is how battles were fought during the Revolutionary War. All the men would line up, these long flanks here, and they would march in a straight line up the hill. Now, for obvious reasons, this is not good war strategy. If they don't have great aim and they're aiming for this guy, well, they're bound to hit somebody because they're all shoulder to shoulder for however many hundreds of yards. So, they led 3 charges up the hill. The Americans won the first 2 charges, right? They killed a lot of people. These guys would retreat. They would come back a little bit later. By the 3rd charge, they ran out of ammunition. And the famous saying is that the leader of the colonists yelled, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." Meaning, we don't have enough ammunition for you to misfire or shoot someone or shoot something out into the air. You've got to hit somebody. So don't fire until they're close enough that you can see the whites of their eyes. So eventually, the British took over the hill, but they had over 1,000 killed or wounded. So this really gave Americans the courage to fight the British in battle. They realized what they could do. What's really interesting, there's a couple of interesting facts about this. This was near town, so people that could see the hill from their town would sit on their porch and watch the battle. This was very common. Like, nobody's going to fire at the innocent people. So, one such person, John Quincy Adams, who later became the 6th president of the United States, was just a child. He was like 5 or 6 at the time of this battle, was sitting on his porch with his aunt, just watching the battle go down. Um, Also, the Battle of Bunker Hill was fought on Breed's Hill. Remember, there were 2 hills that they wanted to take over. The men thought that they were fighting on Bunker Hill, so they called it Bunker Hill, or the Battle of Bunker Hill, but they were actually on Breed's Hill. There was a little bit of confusion, so just something to make you laugh at it.